Somewhere in Michigan, a chainsaw the length of a school bus fires up. Its 6-inch steel chain grinding behind a V8 engine yanked straight out of a muscle car. The owner refuses to rev it to full speed. He's genuinely terrified the chain will rip loose and rocket across the highway into oncoming traffic. That's not a movie prop. It actually cuts. And it's just one of the monsters on this list. These are the 10 biggest chainsaws ever built. Number 10. Jonsered 2094-2095 Turbo. We're starting our countdown in Sweden with a saw that most people outside professional logging circles have never even heard of, but that serious millers speak about with real reverence. Meet the Jonsered 2094 Turbo and its successor, the 2095 Turbo. Jonsered had been building chainsaws since the 1950s, and by the golden age of the 1980s and 1990s, the company had a reputation for high-torque engines and bomb-proof build quality. The 2094 arrived in the early 1990s as the undisputed king of Jonsered's professional lineup, packing a massive 94cc engine. The 2095 Turbo carried that torch forward, staying in production right up until around 2003. What makes these saws belong on a biggest list isn't just the displacement, it's what they were built to do. The 2094 and 2095 were designed from the ground up for the most demanding logging tasks, felling very large timber and above all running portable sawmills. The 2095 in particular became known as one of the largest and longest chainsaws Jonsered ever sold in the United States, moving through the 1980s, 90s, and into the early 2000s. Owners describe it as a genuine big wood machine. It has its fuel and oil tanks mounted at the rear of the saw, which helps balance out the weight even when you bolt on a 32-inch bar. Loggers who ran one alongside the era's other giants, the Husqvarna 394 and 395, the Stihl 066, swear the Jonsered held its own on raw torque, and many milled thousands of board feet with them. Here's a piece of history that matters. In the late 1970s, Jonsered became part of the Electrolux group, which already owned Husqvarna. Over time, the two brands shared engineering, and the 2094 and 2095 ended up closely related to Husqvarna's big professional saws under the skin. So this red and black Swedish brute is, in a way, a cousin of some of the other monsters coming up on this list. It's a fitting place to start, a heavyweight built for the one job that truly separates the big saws from the toys, turning enormous logs into lumber. Number 9. Stihl 076. Now we jump to a saw that vintage collectors describe with two words over and over again: torque monster. The Stihl 076 and its earlier sibling the 075 came out of Stihl's legendary 1111 series. The 076 AV was produced from 1980 to 1986, built around a 111cc engine, and it followed directly on from the 075, which ran from 1974 to 1980. Between the two of them, these saws covered basically the entire stretch from the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s, the peak years when big-bore two-strokes ruled the forest. At 111cc, the 076 was a serious professional saw, and it was constructed the way Stihl built things back then. Tough magnesium alloy, no compromises. Owners will tell you it won't reeve sky-high like a modern racing saw. That's not what it's for. What it does is lug. It produces enormous low-end torque, the kind that pulls a long bar through a massive log without ever bogging down. That's exactly why, decades later, the 075 and 076 remain absolute favorites for chainsaw milling. There's a rugged simplicity to these machines that's almost lost today. Most versions didn't even have a chain brake. The standard AV and Super models left it off, making them best suited for experienced hands only. Starting was via a manual recoil system, and depending on the version, they ran Tillotson or Walbro carburetors and either magneto or electronic ignition. This was a saw for a professional who knew exactly what they were doing. A word of warning that period owners pass around. The 076 vibrates hard enough that you need to keep an eye on the fasteners because they have a tendency to shake themselves loose over a long day. That tells you everything about the character of the thing. Raw, powerful, and utterly unconcerned with your comfort. Today, the 076 has become a genuinely collectible saw, prized precisely because it was built before strict emissions standards changed how these engines could be designed. It represents a very specific breed, the vintage Stihl muscle saw, all torque and magnesium and mechanical honesty. For anyone who wants to feel what big meant in the era of the great two strokes, the 076 is where you start. Number 8. Husqvarna 2100 CD. If you talk to a faller working the coast of British Columbia in the 1980s, there's a very good chance the saw in his hands was this one. The Husqvarna 2100 CD is a 99cc beast produced from 1979 to 1987. The CD in the name stands for capacitor discharge, a reference to its electronic ignition system, which was fairly advanced for its day. And Husqvarna knew exactly what they had. In a 1980s Supersaws brochure, the company billed the 2100 CD flatly as Husqvarna's most powerful professional saw, adding that despite its large capacity, it was easy to handle thanks to a favorable power-to-weight ratio. The numbers back up the swagger. That 99cc engine put out somewhere in the neighborhood of 6.7 horsepower, with a maximum RPM up around 8,000 to 8,500, plenty of speed and torque for serious logging. It weighed roughly 22 to 24.5 pounds, built from die-cast magnesium and polymer, wrapped in that unmistakable Husqvarna orange. Heavy, yes, but manageable for a saw of its class. What really cements its place here is its reputation among the people who used it hardest. The 2100 was described as being way ahead of its time. So good that, as one veteran put it, just about every faller on the west coast of British Columbia had one in the 1980s. Its great rival was Stihl's Big 084, and the two brands battled it out in the biggest timber on the continent. And here's the beautiful part. These saws refused to die. Owners today still fire up their 2100 to mill lumber or knock down the occasional big tree. Story after story runs the same way. Bought it decades ago, ran it hard for years, and it still starts and cuts. One owner summed up the loyalty perfectly, saying he'd been a Stihl man until he tried a 2100 with a 3-foot bar and skip-tooth chain, and after that he was hooked for life. The Husqvarna 2100 CD is a genuine icon of the era. The saw that carried Swedish engineering to the top of the professional heap in the 1980s, and one of the biggest, most respected machines a working logger of that decade could own. Number 7. The 3120 XP. Now we reach the saw that sits right at the edge of our time frame, and at the very top of Husqvarna's entire lineup to this day. The Husqvarna 3120 Stihl first appeared in 2003, and it immediately became the largest and most powerful chainsaw the Swedish giant makes. What's remarkable is that it's barely changed since over roughly 2 decades. There's never been a major redesign, because Husqvarna essentially got it right the first time. It's the if it ain't broke, don't fix it saw of the professional world. At its core is a massive 118.8cc engine, about 7.3 cubic inches, producing around 8.4 horsepower, or 6.2 kilowatts, and spinning up to a maximum of 9,000 RPM. The powerhead alone weighs close to 23 pounds before you add a bar. But the defining spec is the reach. The 3120 XP is engineered to pull a chain on bars up to a full 6 feet long. This saw exists for the jobs that ordinary professional saws simply cannot handle. Extreme logging, felling some of the world's largest tree species, portable sawmill milling, and heavy-duty stump work. To keep that enormous chain alive during deep, hours-long cuts, it carries a high-capacity adjustable oil pump that can deliver up to around 54 milliliters of bar oil per minute, because a 6-foot bar buried in dense hardwood generates a staggering amount of friction and heat. Loggers who've run one next to the competition don't mince words. Millers who cut slabs with a big Stihl 088 and then tried a 3120 came away saying it was simply more saw, no comparison, and that it used less fuel doing it. It's the kind of machine that sits in the corner of the shop most of the year and comes out for the once-in-a-blue-moon giant, the low stump cut, or the serious milling job where nothing smaller will do. Introduced in 2003, made in both Sweden and Brazil over the years, the 3120 XP squeaks into the end of our era as the crowning achievement of Husqvarna's big saw philosophy, and proof that even as the industry shrank saws down, there was still a place at the very top for a genuine monster. Number 6. the 088 and MS 880 Magnum. If the Husqvarna 3120 is Sweden's answer, this is Germany's, the saw that for our entire era and beyond wore the crown as the most powerful production chainsaw money could buy. The story starts with the Stihl 088 Magnum, a 121.6cc professional monster built from 1997 to 2004. It rolled straight into the heart of our time frame and set the standard for raw power. Then in 2004, Stihl replaced it with the near-identical MS 880 Magnum, which carried the exact same 121.6cc displacement forward for years to come. Interestingly, every single 088 was badged a Magnum. There was never a base version. This was a saw that came in only one flavor, Maximum. The specs are brutal in the best way. That 121.6cc engine produces around 8.6 horsepower. Stihl advertised the 880 as having a staggering 23% increase in engine power over the already heavy-duty MS 660, and it'll swing guide bars up to 59 inches, nearly 5 whole feet of cutting bar, with professional millers regularly pushing even longer. The people who run these saws describe them with a mix of awe and physical exhaustion. One owner recalled his dad running an 088 with a 72-inch bar back in the mid-1990s and simply called it a monster. Another admitted that the 088 was the most powerful saw he'd ever run and that he could only manage to hold it for about half an hour before his body gave out. The phrase that comes up again and again is that these saws weigh a ton and are hard on the body, which is exactly why they're reserved for the biggest trees and heaviest milling. There's real engineering pride packed into that weight. Stihl builds these in Germany using pro-grade materials, including a magnesium crankcase cast in its own facility. The power head weighs a bit over 22 pounds, and when you bury it in a giant western red cedar or a hardwood butt log, all that compression and torque turns it into what one user flatly called a superhuman saw. The 088 and MS 880 Magnum represent the modern peak of production power in our era. The German answer to the question of just how much chainsaw a single human can hold on to. But it isn't the biggest engine on this list. Not even close. Number 5. McCulloch Super Pro 125. Time to cross the Atlantic and meet an American legend. A saw that on pure displacement actually beats every modern production chainsaw we've talked about so far. The McCulloch Super Pro 125, along with its variants like the SP 125C, was built around a 123cc engine. Read that again, 123cc. That's larger than the mighty Stihl MS 881's 121.6cc, meaning this 1970s American brute outdisplaces the saw that companies today market as the world's most powerful production chainsaw. McCulloch built a whole family of these 123cc machines, including the 797, Super 797, CP 125, and the Super Pro 125 line. Production ran through the 1970s. The earliest Super Pro 125s appeared around 1971 to 1972, and the final chrome bore SP 125C models came in 1977, with some new old stock examples still selling into the late 70s. This was the era when McCulloch and Homelite were the saws to have in the North American woods. As one old logger put it, McCullochs were the Husqvarnas and Stihls of their day, the tools professional fallers reached for when the timber was big. And these saws could pull. Thanks to a reed-valved engine design, the Super Pro 125 delivered a broad, torquey power band that made it a favorite for hauling long bars through huge logs. Some examples fitted with the factory cart motor were dyno-tested at well over 10 horsepower, and modified race versions push far beyond that. Even today, collectors race lightly tweaked SP 125s and report them knocking off modern 088 Stihls and 3120s Huskies in the cut, a 50-year-old design still humbling the newest giants. There's a bittersweet legend attached to these machines. Loggers who ran them in their prime described them as the best saw McCulloch ever made. Reliable enough to run forever, powerful enough to cut 3 to 5 log loads back when a faller got paid by the board foot on the ground. One old cutter reportedly said the Super Pro put McCulloch out of business because it simply refused to wear out. The McCulloch Super Pro 125 earns its high spot as one of the largest displacement production chainsaws ever built. and a reminder that the biggest saws of our era weren't all European. America had a torque giant of its own, and it was a genuine beast. Number 4. The Stihl O84. Before the more famous O88 that's coming up on this list, there was the saw the milling crowd still quietly hunts for today, the Stihl O84. The O84 was a 121.6cc professional monster, putting out around 8.6 horsepower from 6.3 kilowatts. It was designed roughly 10 to 15 years before the O88 arrived, so it ran right through the mid-1980s and 1990s, squarely in our era, as Stihl's top big timber saw of its day. On paper, it shares its bore, stroke, and displacement with the O88 that replaced it. But under the skin, these are genuinely different machines, and among people who cut the biggest wood, the O84 has a devoted following. The newer saw never quite stole. Here's why it earns its spot. The O84 has, as one expert bluntly put it, the toughest crankshaft in any large displacement modern saw. Its cylinder also came with better port timing straight from the factory. The result is that, as a stock saw, the O84 is actually considered better than the O88 in big wood with long bars. It's the raw, brutal, no-nonsense original, a machine built purely to grind through massive timber and refuse to break. It's also lighter than its successor. Where the O88 Powerhead tips the scales around 22 pounds, the O84 comes in closer to 19.5. Stihl built the lightest saw they could manage for that enormous power range. Owners describe running it as a workout that leaves your hands buzzing the next day, but they also say the same thing over and over. It goes through anything. One saw shop veteran summed it up perfectly. It's not exactly fun to run, but nothing stops it. There's one feature big wood cutters especially prize. The O84 has an auxiliary oiler button, letting the operator pump extra bar oil on demand during long, punishing milling cuts. Bolt one to an Alaskan mill with a long bar and it'll rip huge red oak or Douglas fir logs into lumber all day. Parts are getting scarce now. Much of it is no longer available, which has only made clean O84s more collectible. The Stihl O84 is the definition of a big timber torque monster. Heavy, raw, brutally strong, and beloved by the exact people who cut the largest trees. It's a specific, no-substitutes machine and a fitting number 4. Number 3. The Stihl O70. Before the modern era of plastic housings and computer-controlled carburetors, there was a saw that helped define what professional even meant, and it's still roaring through firewood piles and small sawmills all over the world today. Meet the Stihl O70. Its roots run all the way back to Stihl's legendary Contra of 1959, the machine widely credited as the first modern one-man saw, powerful enough to challenge the big two-man beasts. The O70 carried that DNA forward for decades, built around a roughly 106cc engine and constructed the old way, heavy magnesium, brute simplicity, and a low-revving torque-first character that thumps rather than screams. What earns the O70 a place here is its sheer staying power. This is a saw that refuses to become obsolete. Owners still bolt long bars onto them for milling, still drop big trees with them, and still swear by that unkillable Stihl build quality. It won't win a drag race against a modern racing saw. That was never the point. The O70 lugs, it pulls, it grinds through hardwood all day and asks for nothing but fuel, bar oil, and the occasional spark plug. There's a rugged honesty to it that collectors and working sawyers both love. It's a bridge between two worlds, the raw two-stroke muscle of the 1960s and the refined professional saws that came after. And because so many were built and so many still run, it's one of the few genuine big-bore legends you can still find, still start, and still put to work. That's exactly why it belongs on a list of the giants. Number 2. The Stihl O90. Every saw we've covered so far is huge in its own right. But there is one machine that stands above them all as the biggest real handheld chainsaw ever mass-produced. A vintage Stihl with an almost mythical reputation among collectors. Right below the record-holding giant sits the displacement king, the Stihl O90. Its engine measures a staggering 137 cc, roughly 8.36 cubic inches, with a 66mm bore and a 40mm stroke. To put that in perspective, it's a full 16cc bigger than the modern MS-881 that Stihl currently sells as its flagship, and it outdisplaces every other saw on this entire list. Nothing in Stihl's lineup today, and virtually nothing any manufacturer built before or since, matches the raw cubic capacity of this old monster in a handheld package. The timing fits our era perfectly. The original 090 was produced from 1968 through 1977, and the 090G version carried on all the way to 1985. So this beast was rolling off the line and roaring through the forests across the entire first half of our time frame. Horsepower figures for the 090 have become the stuff of campfire debate. Stihl's own specifications put it around 8.5 horsepower, but period marketing and enthusiasts have quoted numbers as high as 13, depending on how it was measured. What nobody disputes is the character. The 090 was built when engine RPMs were lower and torque was king. It doesn't scream, it thumps. It produces a slow, unstoppable, tractor-like lugging power that can drag a 60-inch bar through the hardest tropical hardwood without ever bogging down. It's also seriously heavy for a handheld saw, with the power head and bar together running somewhere around 30 to 35 pounds. That combination of enormous torque and real weight means it takes genuine strength and experience to run one safely. This was never a beginner's tool. One old-timer recalled his father running a 090 with a 78-inch bar for the really big stuff. Because modern emissions rules make it essentially impossible to build an engine like this today, the 090 has become a collector's grail. Its low-end grunt is something modern, clean-burning engines genuinely struggle to replicate, which is exactly why it stayed a favorite for stationary milling for decades after production ended. The Stihl 090 is the largest displacement production chainsaw of our era. The biggest engine, from the biggest brand, in a saw a human being can actually pick up and carry. Of every real chainsaw on this list, it bows to only one machine, a giant the size of a bus, waiting for us at number one. Number 1. The Stihl MS-881 Magnum. This is it. Not the biggest engine ever built. You just met that one at number 2. This is something arguably more impressive. The most powerful chainsaw money can buy. Brand new anywhere on planet Earth, right now. Meet the Stihl MS-881 Magnum. When the mighty 088 and MS-880 finally bowed out, this is the saw Stihl built to wear the crown, and it has never given it up. At its heart sits a massive 121.6cc engine, producing around 8.6 horsepower, engineered for the single purpose of tackling the largest, most punishing jobs on Earth, felling giant timber and slabbing enormous logs on a mill. Stihl doesn't hedge its language. They call it flatly the most powerful production chainsaw on the market. Full stop. What makes the 881 remarkable isn't just raw output, it's that it delivers that power while meeting modern emission standards, something the old two-stroke monsters could never do. It runs a compensating carburetor to hold performance steady as the air filter loads up, sips less fuel than the saw it replaced, and still swings a factory guide bar up to 41 inches with dedicated millers regularly pushing far longer. The power head alone weighs close to 22 pounds before you add a bar, and burying that in a hardwood butt log turns it into an absolute force of nature. The people who run one describe the same thing again and again. This is a saw that simply does not care how big the wood is. It's the machine that sits in the corner of the professional shop until the once-in-a-season monster tree comes down, or the serious milling job arrives, the job where nothing smaller will finish the cut. The MS-881 Magnum is the modern peak of what a chainsaw can be while still being something a human can pick up and carry. The reigning heavyweight champion of every saw you can actually buy today. Every giant on this list is a legend. This one is the legend that's still being made. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button because there are a lot more record-breaking machines where these came from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.